Welcome back. This just in, One Night in Miami. So, we were back again with another movie review this week. And I have another guest for this new movie review. We have my wonderful friend, a growing expert in the field of African American and African history and studies and cultural studies. We have my friend, Nicholas. Welcome to the podcast, Nicholas. How you doing?
Hello. It's so good to be here. I was born for this moment just to talk about. Kidding. No, I'm doing good. I'm holding up. School's starting again. So, right. Actually, just to put in a little tidbit before you told me to watch this film. I seen it. Literally the first day it came out. I'm like, oh, I gotta definitely check out this film. So I was very excited to watch it. So I'm glad to talk about it today.
All right. So the film we are talking about today is One Night in Miami, a 2021 film available on Amazon Prime that just released. When did it release, Bosco? This weekend? On Friday, I want to say?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Friday. Okay. I think it was Friday.
But it was also at this year's TIFF, and I was planning to watch it at TIFF, but then they made the announcement that it's going to be on Prime. So I'm like, I can wait a few months, and now we're here. So One Night in Miami is a film based on a play by Kemp Powers, and is the directorial debut of Regina King, who is famously known for acting in The Watchmen, If Beale Street Could Talk, and Ray. So One Night in Miami tells the story of a very eventful night with Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Sam Cooke, and Jim Brown. And so yeah, it's based on a play, and it is fictionalized, and it is based on some real events. I got a new format for this review set up, and we'll go with the 3 categories, and then we'll do some other stuff. So first off, Bosco, what did we like about this film? What was your most standout thing of One Night in Miami? No spoilers for now. We'll save it for the second half. But yeah, one thing.
I think the most appreciative part of the movie is how the actors played their roles well. I think the acting was really good. The casting. Even the singing from
Leslie Odom Jr.
character. Yes, he's in Hamilton, I think.
Yes, I think so as well.
Yeah, so his voice is amazing. I was really hooked on the end song. Who else? Muhammad Ali's character was good. He played the part well.
I have to say, after doing some research for him for our televised drop last summer, his voice and the mannerisms, he got them down very, very well. It was I was very surprised, especially in the ring, and this is the first 15 minutes. So again, this is going to be a little less spoilery, but that establishing first scene where he's in that fight with the other guy, you can if you kind of put side to side with some interview footage, it's oh my gosh, he
even
looks similar
in the ring too.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't look exactly the same, but his mannerisms are there.
I find when you watch interpretations or people trying to play real bigger than life characters, they have this challenge of either playing true to their role, being themselves, or trying to do an impersonation of someone else. So actors I find have that balance where they do a really good job impersonating, but they're not really them, or they are themselves, but they
aren't the character.
Exactly.
So what do you prefer? Because I know there's been endless amount of biography films. We just mentioned one, Ray. I think Ray is one from my understanding of it, and kind of like this film, where it's not 100% just a straight the actor just is full on that person, right?
Jamie Foxx was in Ray was pretty much
okay. So he was okay. Sorry, I'm thinking. No, sorry, I got it twisted. So in Selma, it's not 100% MLK. He doesn't play 100%. He doesn't take on the full voice. He doesn't take on the full mannerisms. He takes an idea and he just extracts the key points, and then he plays off of that. From what I know with Malcolm X, I don't know if he went full on. Would you say he went full on, or he went in between?
Malcolm X's character, it was more personal. Other Malcolm X characters, the Denzel Washington one, you could see the feelings and the emotions behind both. If you compared the One Night in Miami, Malcolm X to Denzel's Malcolm X, they're pretty similar. You could see, but
what did you think of this one?
I think he fit the hand fit the glove. I think it was
really?
a good. Yeah, I think it was good.
He was, for me, I think he was definitely more of the antagonist role for sure in this play. Not like a traditional antagonist, but like he was like a little bit of an instigator. I mean, I don't know if this. Maybe we'll get into it later, but yeah, we'll get into it later. But I think he played a very nice, fine role. Like the actor who played it, did a really great job of like pulling when he needed to and pushing when he needed to.
Mm-hmm.
Who else do we have? Jim Brown. I am not familiar with Jim Brown at all. And I know he's an actor, and I have no idea. So, do you know anything?
He was first a football player. So, yeah.
He was also that.
He was saying, so he played on the Cleveland Browns. Very well known. He's like one of the best running backs of all time on the Cleveland Browns. So, his role, it was a very interesting role. And I was questioning why Jim Brown was in the mix of like all those people who are very vocal, like Muhammad Ali and Sam Cooke, like they're pretty vocal. They have differences, as we'll get into like the movie.
In the shits for sure.
Yeah, but his role, like it's interesting. Maybe because he's an actor, he probably had a say in it too. But I just couldn't understand. You get those big faces, and then he's like, oh, let's throw in another. Like that's what Jim Brown was for me. It was just like you got these three guys you could see anywhere when it's like Black History Month. You'll like.
But then there's this low key guy who's just
exactly. It's like if you're in the community or like you're in the niche of like football and you're a big football fan, you'll know like, oh, Jim Brown, whoa, shit, like that's
okay. Yeah. And then now I wanted to save this person in the cast for last, Sam Cooke.
Oh, yeah.
No spoilers, but what did you think of the portrayal of Sam Cooke?
I mean, it was more the in between for me for my interpretation of like, because I watched the Netflix show about how he got murdered.
There's a Netflix show on how he got murdered?
It was intense. I don't know. I don't want to spoil who did it, but wow. Just wow. Like I loved it. Two Sides of Sam Cooke or something like that. Yeah, okay. Very, very
We'll plug it somewhere maybe. Okay, and then, so that's the cast. I think their performances were all great. We'll get a little bit into the shits, but yeah, this is definitely a cast-centric film, would you say? Especially because I think the playness or the idea that it started as a play definitely kind of builds to the strength that this is a cast-focused film. Going on to that.
And it's more like a dialogue too, right? Like so you're seeing that like in films, especially like when we're doing like these cultural films, it's like you're seeing what's being played out. People are actually mentioning things that you have in the back of your head or you see in society.
Right. There's things like, this, I remember this, I've heard of this, or that's stuff like that. Yeah, or like even when you hear it on the TV, when they're mentioning cultural references and stuff like that, we won't get into the cultural references now, but like that's another friend of the shits. But there are some interesting cultural references in this for sure.
Exactly.
Okay, next thing, the pacing. And considering this is a first-time director with Regina King, but she's an industry vet. She knows what she's doing. She's been in a lot of good shit. This was a very interesting ride. We'll get into it a little bit later, but it knew when to go like really high, and then when it took it somewhere else, it just felt so great. Like I didn't know where it was going to go 100% of the time, but I trusted that wherever it went, it would be good. And then wherever, like once we went over that hill and then we're going down, I'm like, oh, whoa. Then when we kind of chilled a little bit, I'm like, okay, this feels good. And there was never a moment where I'm like, okay, this is going too slow. This is going too fast. I thought it was pretty solid throughout. How about you?
I found like tying in the movie and just getting these group of guys together in a room. Like, have you ever for me, I was sitting there, I was watching the movie, and I was thinking to myself, man, if I were in a group of guys, like who would I want to talk to? Like, if I wanted to have like this conversation, whatever, like, who would I want to be in the room with? So I think with the screenplay idea and like how you somehow weave a story that seems real enough, and like you feel, oh yeah, like I could totally see these guys just coming together and like having this conversation,
just having a little chat after a boxing match.
Yeah, just like like I won, I'm the king of the world, I tussle with alligators, I don't care, but boom, I'm here. So like I really love the idea, and I felt the roller coaster too, but it was more jarring for me just to see
just to see these icons in a room just interacting with each other.
Exactly.
All right, so another thing that I liked was the fits, and especially the storytelling of the fits. Like you can tell of who, like obviously they each of like especially Malcolm X's character, he had the iconic black suit uniform, right? The other characters too, I think they all played an individual role where like you could tell from what they were wearing, kind of like who they were. So like for me, it's pretty easy to see that Muhammad Ali was wearing more like the colors. His outfits were more brighter. It was more casual, more of the childish character. And then, of course, we got on the other end, we have Jim Brown, full suit, full vest and everything. And he was like the parental figure of this group, would you say? Where he's like, he was quiet for most
serious.
of it, but he had the silent power. And then we had Sam Cooke. He was a bit more loud, a little bit more wild, kind of playing with that. So, but he did have there was some heart to it too with some of the colors. And then, yeah, I think that, and it was also great for the period. Like it seemed very in the period.
I love the fits throughout. Like I'm a big 60s guy. Like I love like, so
we are a partially a Fits podcast. So it is important to mention Fits and Film. That's the podcast. And I'm like, last time. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out. So yesterday was MLK Day. And we're talking about one night, and Malcolm X and MLK are very like different, but they were fighting for the same cause. But we'll get into
thing. Yes, in the shits.
Yeah, exactly.
Save it for the shits.
Exactly. But I just wanted to put that out there.
Put that out there just so we don't forget.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there was a lot of things I liked in this film. And I think one big thing, I think you'll appreciate this a lot more than I did, but the soundtrack and the music in this film. Yeah. I'll let you take it over for this part.
Yes.
What was your favorite part about the soundtrack? Or what did just talk to me about the soundtrack. I know you love Sam Cooke, right? So hearing his songs and hearing them through Leslie Odom, right? They didn't pull just the straight up sound, right? The songs, right? He actually sang them.
Yeah.
So how did that feel for you?
It was more organic, I felt like. It feels, I don't know, like we talked about before about like the actor person duality thing.
Right.
Like sure you could get him lip singing it, but it's not really like real.
Same,
you don't really,
right?
It's not. But I mean, obviously Sam Cooke is amazing, and like you would wish to hear his voice.
Some Bohemian Rhapsody kind of.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. But I feel like with Sam Cooke, what I found interesting that I was really blown away by. So in the film, in the beginning, you hear Sam Cooke and all those like very famous songs, you know, like Bob Dylan's song, and like you see the progression of how Sam Cooke writes, like writing to the white people, you know, like singing those gospel songs and like Jesus Bring Me Water or This Little Light of Mine. Like you could see like that progression to who he's playing for, like the patriotism part, like the patronage, like white people would pay you and I'm only playing in white clubs. Like this was always happening in the 1920s. Yeah. So that's like the history, but then now you're in the 60s. So it's still happening, still out there. But yeah, so when you hear that, but what really caught my eye is that at the end, even though Leslie Odom, it's his own song. I really loved it. I'm like, shit, Sam Cooke sounds good. Why did I never heard of this?
But it wasn't a Sam Cooke song.
Yeah, exactly. It was Leslie Odom. So I really, really, really was moved by it, I would say, yeah.
So was there any Sam Cooke songs in the film that you wish were in it but weren't? Or were you very satisfied with the selection they chose?
I love the selection. I think like to describe the story, right? Like I feel for me, songs would have a message. Like in a movie, especially, like a song would have a message. Have a purpose. To infer. Yeah. Like I'm pretty biased. Like my favorite song is like either Cupid by Sam Cooke or Chain Gang. I really love Chain Gang, but it was good there. And then a third good one is Bring It Home to Me.
Right.
But how you gonna put Bring It Home to Me when
it doesn't really fit in?
Yeah, it doesn't really fit. But no, Chain Gang was a really, really good song in there.
And how they did it.
Exactly.
We'll get into it a little bit later. So that was all the things you liked. Was there anything you didn't like about the film?
Didn't like.
Because I didn't find anything I didn't like either. There's nothing that stood out that I'm like, It was all like, even thinking about it now and prepping for this episode, I'm like, what? I don't know if there's anything that was just like
stylistically or
just anything in the film that were just like that you just didn't feel with. You just didn't vibe with at all.
I didn't sit with like how the movie ended, even though it was a fiction. Yes, like you just see how everyone like
save it for the shits. Save it for the shits.
Yeah. You know, I just didn't like how the movie ended. Okay. That's all I gotta say.
And before we get into the shits, we're very close, Bosco. The one more thing. What was almost there for you? Nothing something in between. Nothing. It's not that you didn't like it, but you didn't hate it either. It's just that perfect in between. And for me, that was like how sometimes it felt too much like a play. Obviously, it was. It started. It was an adaptation of a play, but I think they did a good job of like. I mean, I don't know the play. I don't know if this is actually what happens in the play, but they do move around a bit, and they do use the art of cinema, the language of cinema very well, especially with the blocking, like in how they like who's on whose side, stuff like that. I think that was a great way to like just bring it outside of, okay, this is more than just the recording of the play, right? And I think another film that that was adapted from a play that did have a little bit more trouble, and it, like I think this is something I noticed too with a lot of play films where they end and start, or they start and end with stuff that where the play doesn't actually start. So if you were to watch the play, like usually the play starts where like maybe once they get all the main characters together. For like for this example, like once they actually get to the hotel, I think that's where the play starts in like the actual play. Like all the preamble before is just added for the film. I think I don't know, but it feels like that was probably the stuff that they added beforehand, and then that's where and then once they got to all together, that's when the actual play starts. And I think it does border a line where it's just like, okay, this is just play, but I think it played it very well most of the time throughout. Where it's like, okay, film, where it's like sticking to the film guns. I don't. Is there anything for you that was like in the kind of mid for you?
For me, what was mid is that the whole movie took place in one room. Like that's just like for me, it was just like cool. You got them all together. You somehow weave the story. But I just wanted to see more. Like I wanted to see like how you met. Like I get it. They all knew each other from before. Right. But I just wanted to see if there was a like fictional thing, like how would you get from A to B? I mean, A to Z, but where there's no B. It was just like, oh, I know this guy. I'm in a room with him. We're good friends. We're chummy. Yeah. But it's not, I don't know. For me, it's just like, it's like, when you're describing when you're in a room, like when you're at a party, right? You're at a party and you're with your friends, but then someone asks you, how do you know this person? I'd be like, oh, like I knew him a few years back. That's it.
So you would want to see, you would want, using the medium of film, being able to teleport throughout time and space, you would want them to play into that a little bit more. So instead of just having one-off references like, oh, we've been together for this many years or whatever, you wanted to see them, okay, flashback to this time.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Like, like they did that. Okay. Well, to be fair, obviously they all like were different ages and like different stages in life. So yes, it would be very hard to do that. But I felt like if you're making a film on it, like
you have the capabilities, it is part of the medium to do flashbacks and flash forwards and stuff like that.
Yeah. But obviously like they did the Muhammad and Malcolm one really well. Like that connection was pretty bang on, I would say. But everyone else. Yeah.
Considering that this is a film supposed to be all about the four, it does kind of it is more of a Malcolm Cassius Clay film at the end of the day. And now, so that's as close as we can get to non-spoilers. So Bosco, now before we get into the shits, scores. I'll go first to set the stage. You can score this film however you want. You can do bananas, you can do polo shirts, whatever. ABC, doesn't matter. Whatever score you want to give it. So for me, I'm going to give it a solid 9.2. I'll give it a 9.2.
Wow.
I'll give it a 9.2. Yeah.
Okay.
Considering, well, I think this definitely did get boosted a lot because considering all the films that came out this year, there was not that many. So like having this refresh, like this wave of excellence just like washed me over completely. And I was just enthralled in the film the whole time. So yeah, 9.2 for me. Thing.
I think because they're not really like standout actors, like they did really well.
They are all low key people. Like if you didn't know, you didn't know.
Exactly. So I would say on that standpoint, I would give it like an 8.7, close to 9. But
8.7 is okay.
Yeah, the ending didn't sit right with me, but we'll get on to why.
And now you can talk about that ending because we're in the shits now. So Bosco, what did you not like about the ending?
The you know how you brought up the Malcolm and Muhammad togetherness, but I felt Sam Cooke and Jim Brown's character, right? Like they were like pushed off. They were just watching on the balcony,
right?
Like them doing the press conference at the very end, right? Like that part, I was like, I get why you're doing that. It's like an easy way to wrap things up, but I really wanted to follow along, like how Jim Brown like moved on with his career, or the same way with Sam Cooke. Or
Right.
like I know, like
They
they
did
showed
give him a
Malcolm
mention.
X's part. Like they didn't give it a little bit of mention, but like they did Malcolm X's part. You know, they talked about the bibliography, like him writing it. Like that was
Mhm.
the whole
That
thing.
whole
But
shot, putting the glasses
yeah,
down on the what is that manuscript? Same thing with
exactly.
Muhammad Ali. They gave him that whole moment before.
Not even a moment. It was
They
just
gave him
like
the whole
2
scene,
seconds.
or
Yeah, it's just
kind of
changing
like a
his
shot
name.
where
Yeah,
he
it's just
switched.
like, oh, I'm changing my name. That's it.
Oh, I was talking about the whole church scene. I was talking about that.
Oh,
But they also,
see what
I
you're
did
saying.
remember what you were talking about, where they're like, oh, as a text blurb, they're just like, this is it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking about it too, like when the opening, when they're setting up all the 4 characters, Jim Brown's scene was like, out of the 4, Jim Brown's scene was like the most like, whoa, okay, this is the film, right? I mean, yeah, I think his was the most like, oh, whoa, this is where the film's gonna go. With Cassius Clay, it was like, okay, this is a boxing match, shows his personality. Sam Cooke, kind of down in the shits. Do you remember? I don't know why I can't remember. Do you remember Malcolm X's opening scene? Was it him talking to his wife? Was that the scene? And then he was me quickly.
Yeah, I think so. I was either him talking to his wife or him in the Brotherhood, the Islam group meeting. I think. You know what I'm
Yes.
talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was one of those 2 scenes. But
No,
yeah,
okay.
like
No, it was him coming home to talking to his mom. That's what
okay.
his opening scene was, right? And
Yeah.
then, so yeah, the Jim Brown scene was like, oof. But like considering later, like how he kind of set up the film's tone, and it's kind of sad. Where not sad, but I don't know if I was fully like, I was expecting a little bit more from him, considering how he set the precedent and he kind of kicked the film going forward with his scene.
I think they all set the film, like they all attacked racism, but in different forms, right? Like when Sam Cooke was at the Copa, like singing, that's like the first time we meet the guy, right?
Right.
He's in a room full of white people,
and they're all like looking away. They're not giving him the piece of day or whatever.
Exactly. And he's trying to sing like a white song too, right? So I'm like, okay, I can see that. Malcolm X, you know, he's always like that guy who's hated because he wants to incite violence, you know, like I want to fight back, you know. And then Jim Brown's character, I could see as like someone who doesn't really know about like I don't really know that much about Jim Brown, but like yeah, like that blatantly shows what it's gonna hit. But then Muhammad Ali too, right? Like he was making very good accolades for black boxers. Like there are many. There was like Sonny Liston, obviously, and like others, but Muhammad Ali was like the greatest of all time. You know, like
the champ.
Yeah, literally. So that's how I saw it. I saw it as like different aspects. So I could see how their stories, because they talked about different aspects of the same problem.
Right. See, okay, I didn't think of that until you brought it up. But yes, I can see that now. And I think it does play with it very well. I think for me, the reason why I went to Jim Brown, because that was the most blatant. That was the loudest one. Even though it was the quietest scene, it was the loudest moment. And I think that silence speaking the most, that's the one that like stood out to me the most.
It was the actions too, right? Like think about it.
Yeah.
Like in the Jim Brown one was the actions. Like and like another thing to tie in like with the interaction of the characters, you see near the end of the film, you could see how Malcolm X is trying to reach out to Sam Cooke.
Right.
But no one's really reaching out to Jim. Like Jim's apparently
that's the thing too. I don't know. Maybe because Jim Brown is, I guess, the least well known of that 3 set of men. So maybe that's why he got shafted. But I think, he's the least known. Maybe this is the time to give him that little boost.
Yeah.
That's not what we got. But I think he did still play a powerful, again, I think that I'm thinking about it now. Each of their intro scenes kind of set up how they are going to be throughout the film, right? So as I said before, I didn't go too deep into it in the what we liked, whatever section, but he did have that silent powerfulness throughout the whole thing, right? Especially towards the end where it's just him and Malcolm, where Jim Brown in that bed where they're on the bed and they're just talking, Jim Brown doesn't say a fucking word, but his power is there. His looks, who he looks at, and they know. As soon as he looks at them, like, okay, I know what you're saying. And again, that's just power to the actors. Just being able to demand the screen and demand that like presence, have that presence where you're just looking, saying nothing, but you get the audience knows and the character knows what you're saying without saying anything.
Exactly.
Okay,
Like
and then
I found,
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, a big scene for me was when Jim Brown was talking. Okay, so two big scenes. One big scene was when in the music industry, Sam Cooke was talking about royalties and like how he's like, I could accept that my song's not gonna be up in the top charts, but if I could own the rights to the song and like do all this other stuff, I found it was really powerful because like no one really sees that. No one really pays attention to that.
The business of the music is hush hush.
Exactly. And then the second one was when Jim Brown was talking to Malcolm X about colorism, like the idea that darker, like African Americans and people like people with a darker complexion have a harder time than like the Malcolm X's who are like lighter skinned, right? Like that conversation is just like,
obviously we cannot explain that from firsthand, but from their from their explanation of it.
Yeah, it was very, very, very interesting to see, and like a lot. It's like you can see it all over in like text. Like you people like pick up on it a lot quicker, and they're just like, oh, you know, like if you're white passing, like that's the term. Like just because you're white passing. There was actually books on it in the 1920s, 1930s, like written by Black authors who like talk about that. So yeah, very interesting.
Jakes. Okay, and then the music. Now I wanted to get a little bit deeper into that. So again, Leslie Odom did cover all the songs throughout the film, and we kind of went into it where he was talking about how with the record industry, where although he was on. Like he didn't get on the Billboard. He did get the money though. He got the money from being number one or whatever. What did you think about the performance or how he played this? How did you feel about the songs? Like how he sang them and like I want to get into like that chain gang scene. How did you feel during that scene?
Wow, like at first I felt eerie. I felt bad for the guy, you know, like mic's not working and it's just like, oh, what am I going to do? But then it brought out a really good part of like music, at least in like an African American sense, is that where like the rhythms and the beats and all that, like when people focus on music from like an outside point of view, they pick up on those things like a lot like easier. It's like, you know, you could tell it's an Afrobeat song or it's like a soul song because it has rhythm to it. It's more lively. It's more interactive. It engages like the audience.
Just
right?
the
like,
shits you feel.
Exactly. It just, I don't know. For me, it's like, it warms me up inside to like see that emotion, to see that like expression. But like, yeah, when Leslie Odom was doing it, like I've kind of like seen that like part, like where Sam Cooke was trying to do, right? And like the white people, like when they're listening to this, is just like, you know, it's whatever. But yeah, no, that scene, the chain gang scene, was like really big because it switched. I think it was like the tipping point to Sam realized that his words could also like make a meaning too, and it's not just like the things he does behind the scenes.
Right.
And
I like that too. Like there was a lot of points in this. Ian explained it too. Like there was a lot of like tension building and untension built. There was a lot of like tension built up and then release. And I think it was perfect. Every moment when they got into a nice, super heated conversation, you didn't know where it was going to go. And then it managed to release, but then it came right back up. I think they masterfully did it. And the performances kind of played excellently to them, and as well as the direction. I don't know. Anything else?
Like I think I'd watch this at least 3 times. Like
wow. Okay.
Really good.
And with that has been This Just In. Thank you, Bosco, for joining me today to talk about One Night in Miami. It's been one night in the podcast world. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Where can they find you? What is your thingies that people can look at?
You could find me on Instagram at bosco.nicholas. And
your website, your little bloggy poo.
Oh, my little vloggy poops. Okay. Yeah, it's on my Instagram. You could click the link and then just check it out. I haven't been updating it recently, to be honest, because I was just putting out like those little short, like just like frameworks at least and like ideas out there. But who knows? Maybe I'll pick it up again.
Pick it up.
It was just something to put out there.
Start the writing back up again. My hands are cold. I'm in my garage and it's really cold. So that's why I'm trying to do a hand gesture and it just kind of went going like this. My hands are frozen.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Exactly.
That's been the episode. Check out Bosco. Everything else is in the bio. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.